I'm rather certain of it. I seem to be. Please let me know if I am in the comments or chat or whatever you call that for a live. Hello! We have a brand new trailer for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms that is just launched about 3 minutes ago as of the time I am doing this, which it's live, so it's right now. And I thought we'd go through it because last time I didn't get a chance to stream and discuss the new trailer because I was in New York. You call that for a live. Hello! But yes, hold on, we're getting some feedback here. Kingdoms that is just launched about 3 minutes ago. Hold on right 1 second. I can hear myself there for a second. Right now. Strange. But I think I am okay now. If I am echoing or anything similar to that, let me know, please. I see someone in the chat is asking me if I can do A Song of Ice and Fire characters by Pokemon types. That'd be very fun to do. Double audio. Okay, let's work on that real quick. I can hear myself there for a second. That's strange. Both are the real quick. Okay now. Dunk and Donut. Oh, hey, HN, good to see ya. Let's see. I see someone in the chat is asking me if I can do A Song of Ice and Fire characters by Pokemon types. Still echoing. That's strange. Double audio. Let me see here. Some issue, and I will resolve it. Toot sweet. Both are the real quick. Okay now. Dunk and Donut. Oh, hey, HN, good to see ya. Let's see. I see someone in the chat is asking me if I can do... Yep, I had it open in another tab. Perfect. We are A-okay at this point. Thank you all for bearing with me. We have a brand new trailer to discuss. As I've said, this looks really good. It's the first kind of full trailer that we have seen. And it's longer than the last one because of it. The last one was technically just a teaser trailer. But now we have, the full thing. We have a full trailer that's, I believe, over 2 minutes long, which is pretty impressive. But I think the voices should be resolving now. Let me know if they have. Otherwise, I'm just going insane, and I might try to restart this and figure it out. But regardless, be sure to, like the stream and subscribe to the channel and all of that typical stuff. I'm kind of scared it'll be bad. Honestly, I think it looks pretty great based on what we've seen. So... I'm going to go through the trailer. It's going to be muted because I don't want the HBO copyright robots to attack me because they've done it before. The only time I've gotten a copyright anything on this channel was when I played the audio from the first House of the Dragon Season 2 trailer. So now we're muting it. We have subtitles, even though I'm not typically a subtitles guy. We're going to go through here. I've seen this once, so we're kind of going through for the first time together here. Ominous music plays. I love this shot, by the way, just not to pause myself literally 3 seconds into the trailer, but this shot rules. It is currently my Twitter header, and it's excellent. I love the armor. The Baratheon armor specifically as well is just incredible. I love you too, whoever said that. Thank you all again for joining me for this discussion. And it is nice to see this kind of full extent of the trial realized. It's going to be very interesting to see on screen actually kind of playing out here. Breathing heavily. This is another thing. It's really cool to see, like, we have Dunk's eyes, and then we're actually in Dunk's helmet here, because in that first interview and panel at New York Comic Con, the showrunner, Ira Parker, talks about this idea of perspective being very important to the show, as this idea of we're actually in Duncan the Tall's head, we are seeing the world as he sees it. And I think in this instance, we are actually literally seeing the world as Dunk sees it. So I take this shot as a very cool indication of the goals of this show overall, and I'm very excited to see if we get more kind of interesting playing with perspective as we go. Yeah, this seems to be the end of the show, or near it, and we get that really cool shot of, like, zooming in over the shoulder as we'd seen in the previous trailer. It's, I think, my favorite shot we've seen so far, and actually zooming into his head, and that one is really cool. And then we get our first on-screen interaction between Baelor and Dunk, which is cool. There's obviously, like, the funny Dunk of, like, trying to go the wrong way or something. But I do find it really interesting the way that they're kind of framing Baelor in this trailer. He seems more kind of harsh almost than I would typically expect the character to be, given that Baelor is kind of viewed as this kind of pinnacle of what a king should be at any point we've seen him on page. I think that they're trying to kind of maintain this illusion that this individual is maybe still a bit sterner and more concerned with appearances and being this Targaryen individual. And I think they might be trying to kind of keep this facade up to kind of build mystery around this individual who, as we can see here, is Hand of the King. He's got that very famous little pin now, which is pretty great. That is Baelor. It is interesting. So his son... I believe so. We don't have casting, or we do have casting for Daryon. We see Valar as well, briefly in another trailer. And we know that that actor also has heterochromia, I believe the condition is called, meaning that he has eyes of two different colors. And we can see that that is very clearly the case here as well with the one and only Baelor Breakspear. Yeah, I will say there is some criticism with this casting. I can see the chat is kind of taking the Mirren Trant approach of, oh, too old. I don't disagree with that. I think that it does kind of, some of the ages here seem somewhat weird, particularly Baelor's brother, Mykar, looks a bit old. We'll get into that in a little bit. But overall, my main issue is that he doesn't really appear Mediterranean or Dornish in any way, given the fact that that is a big point of concern, that Daeron II, his father, was married to the Princess of House Martell, and that the line was then not, Targaryen through and through. It does kind of capture this idea that he's not viewed as fully a Targaryen, given that he doesn't have the Targaryen blonde hair. But we obviously know that Jon Snow also doesn't. But yeah, there's also some talk of whether or not people like if he has a beard. I don't super mind it. I think that it kind of works, especially in making the Targaryens generally more grounded in this era, as they are literally grounded by not having dragons, which I find pretty interesting. But yeah, it's nice to see the kind of aesthetics of the interior. This is obviously the Lord's house, Lord Ashford at this point. Dunk found the right way. A tale 100 years before Game of Thrones. I understand why that's the tagline, because it's 100 years. That's great. It's not quite 100 years. I think it's 89 years before the first book begins. So overall, that is, it's inaccurate. This is unwatchable. No, it's great. It makes sense. It's like the beginning of House of the Dragon saying it's so many years before Daenerys Targaryen. It will be interesting to see if there's any way that this show will potentially spoil future events from House of the Dragon, given the fact that this is taking place 80-ish, 90-ish years after House of the Dragon. So it is unclear if we'll get any direct spoilers. I would imagine they'll steer clear of it, but it would be interesting to see if they are actively kind of steering away from these things, because they did, spoil things in terms of the story of House of the Dragon, and even Dunk and Egg in Game of Thrones, in both cases by Joffrey. I should also say, if anybody has any questions or things they'd want to say, feel free to send in a super chat. That is always very appreciated, and also be sure to like the stream. It helps more people see it, I think, and also subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. But yeah, 100 years before Game of Thrones, Sir Duncan came for the tourney. I love the focus on horses as well that we see. Ooh, we're going to get into this scene in a second here. I paused on exactly the right moment. I hope that the names of the horses are all name dropped. In this instance, Hedge Knights in the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire universe, their worth is oftentimes very tied up in the horses that they own. And Dunk has 3 from his dead mentor, and they are all now his, one of which is now used for tourneys. The other 2 are used for just simple travel. Additionally, right now we get some insight into 2 individuals, the Fossleways, which is quite interesting. The main Fossleway we see and interact with and actually hear from in this trailer, which I really enjoy, is Raymond Fossleway. He is the guy what is being kicked through that fence right there. And I'm really happy to see that this conflict is preserved and is kind of brought back into this adaptation, because I think that it is something that is not necessarily a main part of the book, but it is nice. It adds to the world building. It explains why there are these branches of this house that are going to exist in the main series, and I'm overall very excited to see it. And I do really like what we see of Raymond Fossleway in this trailer. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it is Raymond Fossleway. I always get their names mixed up because they're both from the same house and at this point have the same sigil, but I digress. This is also him entering the tourney. I like that he's seeing some resistance there, and we actually see kind of the beginning of his training with Egg there. We can see Egg kind of not only leading the horses, but spinning a sword around a bunch like it's a staff or something, which is pretty neat. I'm not sure. So obviously, Egg probably has some small level of training. He's obviously very young. He's, I think, 8 or so at this point in the story, but he would still undoubtedly have some form of martial training as a Targaryen prince, and it does make sense that he would end up, knowing a little bit more about forms and this sort of thing than Dunk would. And I like the kind of almost cartoonish vibe here, like him running away with is that a sword or a staff or a stick or something? It's really cute. And honestly, like, I don't know why that gives me like Yoda vibes, just like kind of running. I'm a fan. Sheep bleeding. There are going to be sheep in this show, guys. I'm so excited. It is actually really neat to see like things this grounded, that like, yeah, horses and farm animals are present and a decently important part of this story and world at this point. And we see them. Is that sandwiches? Do we have sandwiches in Westeros? This actually might be the biggest breaking news of the day. It's a lance, it's a spear. Thank you. It's a tourney lance. We do see him running with it in the earlier trailer. That is a great call. But we see here it's saying every knight needs a squire. Wow, yeah, Gladys and Swift are gonna have a field day. Do we know if sandwiches exist in the books? Is this because it seems like they're not just eating bread. There's something poking out there as well. No, because that's the thing. You got to zoom and enhance. There's meat in that bread. It's a hot pocket. That's correct, Tommy. Yeah, this is earth shattering. This might be the topic of my next video if my next video were not already recorded and almost done. Yeah, that's massive news. I like that we also got like a water skin over here. All of the realities of being a knight in this medieval age is really interesting, and we're actually kind of getting it here. Let's see. Continuing on, saddles as well. You look like you need one more than most. So this is Egg trying to convince him to be the squire. It was really cute. The kind of teaser for this trailer is kind of this scene that was taken from, I believe, the graphic novel adaptation directly, but it was also in the text where like Egg is wearing Dunk's equipment and pretending to joust on the horse, which is really cute, and I'm really excited to see it. I do wonder, I think this will probably be in the first episode. I do wonder how exactly they're going to be paced. I need to reread the graphic novel because I know that is broken down into like 6 different issues, and I imagine that those issues are going to roughly correlate with what each episode is and what each episode is going to cover as it goes. So this is more focus on horses, as we see 2 of them there. Let's see, beyond that, a new HBO original series. We've got, of course, the shot of, the burying in the grave. That tree looks identical to how I pictured that tree. And those are kind of the shots that we saw first and foremost. Not necessarily his dead mentor, who looks exactly like Barristan the Bold, but we do have these kind of early shots. We'd seen the, Dunk holding out the sword was, I think, the first shot from like a year ago. We had that back when House of the Dragon Season 2 was airing, that show that everyone likes. But yeah, let's see. Speaker, what's this? We see him kind of entering the tourney grounds here. These are obviously, individuals that Littlefinger mayhaps might have employed in the main series. Are those Lannister banners? Hold on. Zoom. Enhance. Oh, actually, that's really cool. So we're on banner watch here, because back here, if we can see it, that's a Dondarrion sigil right there. So we got some Dondarrion representation. Beric Dondarrion, in case you forgot him, which I'm sure you didn't. He has one of the best voices in Game of Thrones. It's really cool to see that. I wish it were more purple, but it is really neat to see how accurate that is, because I honestly don't remember Beric Dondarrion wearing any sort of sigil in the show at all, which is, neat to see this progress from there. They're talking about Hedge Knight is like a knight but sadder. And it makes sense that this is something that would be kind of explained in the show, because in universe, it's obviously known what a Hedge Knight is, but outside of universe, not really. Martin kind of invents this term. I'm not positive if he was the first use of it. There are many phrases and words that he does kind of originate, but in this case, Hedge Knight is kind of taken from this idea of like a hedge wizard, which exists in certain other fantasy things. Hedge wizards being kind of like a Gandalf, wandering from place to place, doing magic and what have you. And at this point, it does make sense to kind of tell the audience that, yes, Dunk is a knight, but he's also this specific kind of knight who is kind of lower born, lower class, and he is just wandering almost like a samurai from place to place. Wow, that'd be a cool video discussing like, is Dunk and Egg like a samurai story? That would be interesting. That might be a future video. Stay tuned for that. He does look sadder there. Poor Dunk. Let's see. Continuing. Not sad. Banner watch. Boo, boo, boo. I think that's Lannister banners back there, which is neat. We know the Lannisters are present in the Hedge Knight in the book, but they don't have a massive role in the story itself. We know that there are some competing in the tournament, and they are briefly, trying to kind of be the champion. They briefly are the champion, I think. Did some bingo fields get crossed off yet? That actually might be a good thing to check later on in the stream. But I'll have to take a look there. I'm not sad. Poor Dunk. He's a little sad. Based on the acclaimed novellas by George R.R. Martin. I got this comment in my community post about this video earlier today, but just to clarify, Martin is not writing this show. You don't have to boycott this show because The Winds of Winter isn't out yet, because Martin wrote this novella in 1997. This is something that he wrote a long time ago, and this does not represent him kind of taking the time away from, the series proper. Let's see, continuing on past our beloved author, it's neat to see the royal box here. And I believe this is our first real shot in the trailers of Maekar Targaryen. I think that is my most mispronounced name in the series, at least generally. I'm sure there are some more in the main series that I don't really do much, but regardless, Maekar Targaryen is right there on the left. He's got the beard as well. He looks a good deal older than I would expect him to do, but it does make sense given that at this point he does have adult children. Given the fact that, Daeron the Drunken is, fully an adult here. Aerion is a young man, but is a man nonetheless, and certain other children that Martin might spoil. But regardless of that, we see the two brothers here, Baelor Breakspear and Maekar Targaryen, the hammer and the anvil, and I am really excited to see how their dynamic kind of takes shape over the course of this show. I do think it is probably, correctly Maekar, given that, Aegon, Maekar, it's not Aegon, it makes sense. Maekar makes sense, but I just tend to say Maekar. We also have Aerion over here, and I believe, so I don't think we have confirmation on who this guy is, who's between Aerion and his uncle, Baelor. Sorry, I'm getting all my Targaryen names mixed up. But yeah, in the middle there, I would guess that's Lord Ashford, the individual who is hosting this tournament here and who is, having these royals in his castle, and they're probably sleeping in it, and he's probably sleeping in a van outside or something. Kind of like we saw in House of the Dragon Season 2 with, the Lannister host arriving at whichever castle that was. I haven't seen Season 2 in a hot minute. Yes, Lord Ashford. I did get that right. That is good to hear. He's saying he'd call himself a champion. So it says that he's kind of going into this with some ambition. A great house might take Dunk into their service, because right now, Dunk is someone with nothing to his name other than his horses and his rope sword belt. So he is looking for a way to live, effectively, given the fact that he doesn't have anything. He's been lowborn his entire life. He grew up in King's Landing with absolutely nothing, and he really hasn't come all that much further from that. This is his chance to maybe make something of himself and, come into his own and be a person who is able to, survive and live and have a job. These Targaryen banners, Banner Watch, are excellent, and I love them. They've actually got the wings attached, which is really interesting. This sort of dual triangular banner is one that is fairly common in terms of medieval aesthetics. We never seen it in terms of ice and fire houses. It's kind of like a longer version of the flag of Nepal, but regardless of that, having the wings extending back from the Targaryen banner, in addition to the flame being gouted out, it's really cool to see, and this design is excellent, and it only has 2 legs, so Martin is probably happy about that, as he is just happy about everything about this show, it seems. That was my impression based on seeing him at the New York panel for this show. And then we got another shot here of other individuals. We have Baelor Breakspear again here, just kind of aura farming, which he does very successfully. I love his little shoulder thingy. It's for the hand pin, but it's scales coming out of that, which is really neat. I'm a big fan of just the aesthetics in this show generally, and I do like that the Targaryen look is a lot more grounded in general, given the fact that this is an age where they aren't on dragons. They aren't necessarily overlords for any concrete magical reason. They are just overlords because they once had dragons and now they do not. And then behind him, this seems to be again Lord Ashford, and this seems to be the Tourney Master, who I don't know if he has a name in the book. If he does, I forget it. I need to reread The Hedge Knight before full coverage begins. I listened to the audiobook back in, I think it was March. I'd highly recommend it. The audiobook for all of 3 of the Dunk and Egg stories is free on Spotify, and it is all voiced by the wonderful Harry Lloyd. I think that's his name, right? Yeah, that's Viserys from the first season of Game of Thrones. He's an incredible voice. I also know him as Zed in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is one of my favorite games of all time, but I won't go there because my viewership will start plummeting. This is also a really interesting look into the perception of the Targaryens right now. Plumber, thank you. So Targaryens are viewed as incestuous aliens at this point, which is fascinating because at this point, they've fallen such a far away from the way they were viewed in the time of House of the Dragon. We hear again and again and again in that show the Targaryens are closer to gods than men, and now they're viewed as aliens and defined by their incest. And it's really interesting to see the development of their relationship with the common people. And at this point, there seems to be some sort of funeral pyre going on. I'm not going to say who or what might be happening there, given the fact that I don't want to 110% spoil. But regardless, we've seen several Targaryen pyres throughout the series. Most notably, Daenerys does one for Khal Drogo, which results in the birth of her dragons. And then pretty much every Targaryen in House of the Dragon who dies and has the chance to have a burial is burned. We see that for Emma and her son Balon, and then we see it later. Actually, I think that's the only time we see it, but it is repeated again and again throughout Fire and Blood, which is, of course, what I am thinking of and getting mixed up about. I believe, yeah, the only person, I think this is Valar Targaryen here, if I remember correctly. We saw a brief glimpse of him in the previous trailer, but overall, this is our first, direct look. He's got a nice little Targaryen brooch there, and I don't know if it is just the dark hair, but he does kind of bring a Jacaerys energy at this point, which is interesting to see, and that is, that Targaryen, okay, it's silver. I was going to say, if that's a black Targaryen pin, I don't know. That could be viewed as treasonous at this point in the story. We've got a nice little horn here, which is neat. That makes sense. They need to blow something to kind of start the joust. And it's interesting. We are getting the perspective of a character here. The Targaryens are being spoken about by Raymond Fossaway, an individual that Dunk bonds with quite a bit. We saw him getting kicked through a fence a little bit earlier. I think I pointed that out a little bit. And it is interesting to see his perspective as a noble, but kind of a lesser noble. He's kind of the step between Duncan the Tall and these Targaryen princes who are closer to gods than men, at least in the House of the Dragon time. Now they're just, viewed as weird. And we see here some fighting going on. We know that this is Aerion's armor here, so this is Aerion. Aerion, I need to find a way to distinguish the way I say it's going to be Arion and Aerion, because Aerion is how I pronounce Aerion Martell, the viewpoint from the main series, whereas this is Aerion Brightflame, I'm going to say. I've decided now that you've witnessed a Quinn the GM decision. They're rare. But we see Aerion stabbing someone, probably Dunk, in the back, which is interesting, and I do think says a lot about this character's overall, character, in that he is kind of taking advantage of this underhanded moment and trying to strike against someone when their back is turned. That's a really great point. Pablo Willie in the chat says, wait, do they know what aliens are in Westeros? Because this line, Targaryens, they're incestuous aliens. So at present, we are adding to the list of things in Westeros right now, including sandwiches and aliens. HN Films, the one and only, the greatest. Check out his channel, it's excellent. I actually just appeared in a video of his last night, but he mentions this show looks just as gray as House of the Dragon. I think it's marginally better. I think this particular scene is going to be very gray because the point of it is being kind of down in the muck with Dunk and with these people all fighting. But some of the earlier parts of the trailer, particularly revolving around some of the tents and the heraldry and all this stuff, does seem a bit brighter. Doesn't alien just mean foreign? Yes, it does, but I'm not sure if that... Let me search of Ice and Fire it real quick. I'm searching alien on Search of Ice and Fire. Did I spell it right? Oh, wow. Yeah, it is a word. It is just foreign. It's actually it's used in the Lost Lord chapter. So it's definitely real. That's John Connington is my basis for something being real. Alien is officially a word in Westeros. They're just not extraterrestrials. But yeah, no, I think that overall this scene is intentionally kind of down in the muck with everyone. It is really cool to see this shot. I really enjoy it. Getting a better look at the armor and the fact that it isn't just this really cool mask that looks like kind of flame and a human face, but also the spikes protruding throughout. Man, that might be my favorite armor in the series so far, that we've seen at least. Let's see. And tyrants mentioned, so that is quite interesting as well. We have looks like okay. This is a bingo card point not confirmed here. We have Aerion Brightflame, we can tell again because we can see another shot of him in this kind of nice fancy doublet at this point later on. He's cracking nuts with a dagger, and it's not the prophecy dagger. We officially have a dagger in this show that does not contain the Song of Ice and Fire or Aegon's prophecy. So right now we're fine on that front. And also, I would imagine that if someone in this show were to have it, it would be Baelor Breakspear, and I think that he would have probably worn it on his person, and the fact that we know that he doesn't, and we see him without it, makes me think he doesn't have it, or just didn't bring it to this tournament, which would make sense. Are those like walnuts? I can't quite see. But yeah, no, he's got this kind of open thing. You see some chainmail underneath. That's neat. I have to say, the short hair Aerion Brightflame is really growing on me. I really did not care for it upon initial viewing of the first trailer, but it looks very good, and it does very much distinguish from the traditional Targaryen that we have seen so far in the series, at least depicted on screen. I do think that some other elements, like the shorter-haired Daemon, should have been kept for a bit longer, but I do like this choice of him having shorter hair in this instance. Sir Duncan the Tall asking Baelor, Aerion would like your head. So this is interesting. We're getting kind of the later on perspective after things happen. And this seems to be Dunk looking at a dead man of some sort. It's interesting. It looks like he's holding like clothes of some kind, but the helmet has a head in it. So maybe he's scavenging to get equipment. It's unclear exactly what this might be. I'm not positive on it. And even from the book, I'm not 100% sure on what exactly this is depicting fully. I also have to say, I'm surprised with the lack of Lionel Baratheon at this point in this trailer, as he was a big feature in the last one, and I do think he's going to be a big feature in the show generally. I assumed it was a mannequin head. It does kind of look like it's made of stone, but my thought it was like dirt and, puppet stuff. It could be one of the puppets. So Tanzel, there's stills later that I'm going to go through, is a puppeteer, and this could be one of her puppets that is used to fight a dragon. Come out, little knight. This could be, I have a thought. So my prediction on this is, if it's come out, little knight, I think this is after Dunk has attacked Aerion. I think it's going to be him kind of looking at her puppets, maybe inside of her tent that honestly looks a little bit more like a cave, and then Aerion is calling him out and kind of drawing him to fight him or kill him or something. Why no Daeron? I don't know. I wish we had more Daeron too, but both House of the Dragon and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms playing it very close to the vest on Daeron's generally. Again, that same shot of this really, really cool helmet. Again, I think one of my favorite sets of armor in the entire series, though Game of Thrones really didn't do much armor. So this is kind of an inquisition from Baelor Breakspear to Duncan the Tall. And there is, after Duncan attacks Aerion, I know, I'm working on the pronunciation, I apologize. But regardless, this is an interesting way of kind of framing it, because Baelor in the text is viewed as kind of one of the few purely good characters that Martin writes, and someone who is kind of destined to be king and would have been absolutely excellent at it. And I do think that this kind of image of him that presenting in this trailer is one that is a bit more stern, and I think it is trying to kind of create this disconnect between who Baelor actually is in the show and what we're being set up to expect from him. I think they want his true nature and him just being a swell guy to be something that is surprising to the viewer, given our history of some Targaryens that are less than savory. And I do think something that I keep seeing on Twitter, and that I kind of agree with, is that he looks a lot like Otto Hightower, which I find pretty interesting, given that kind of image is very distinct. This Hand of the King with dark hair and a beard, some gray in the beard, who is, I don't know, different in some way. He's kind of the yin to Otto's yang, I think, but it is very similar vibes between the two characters, at least in terms of strictly physical appearance, IMO. I really have to say, Peter Claffey is absolutely killing it in this role from everything we've seen in the trailers, albeit I don't think that's a great way to judge how well he's doing in a role, but I think this is one of the first instances of real range we're seeing from him, because this is a very angry and stern look, and I'm excited to see how he's able to kind of carry it through. And obviously the last line in this trailer legitimately gave me chills when I watched it before starting the stream. I apologize that I cannot play it for you, but yeah, look at that look. This is the thing, because Dunk is a truly good person throughout the entire series, but he does have that dog in him. He's got an edge to him. He was born in Flea Bottom. He is able to fight, and there is anger in there when provoked, truly for a just cause, and I think that is what we're seeing here. I'm really excited to see it. Dramatic music plays. This looks just pulled directly from the comic as well. Let's see. I love the chainmail under the armor as well. As mentioned, Game of Thrones, really kind of a neglected armor overall, especially in certain key instances, like the Kingsguard never had that like well-defined armor, or armor that was like particularly good or interesting. I like it a bit more in House of the Dragon. It looks more realistic, but those weird like triple like ridge helmets that were the Kingsguard in Game of Thrones, I have never really liked. Speaker 3, you may be wise to run. We later learn that this speaker is, I think, the same conversation. It's Raymond Fossaway talking to Dunk, or maybe just a different conversation between the two, but the voice is the same. Regardless, you may be wise to run. We have Egg here, walking with a horse. Won't they kill me if I run? This is undoubtedly Dunk just worrying about getting away and whether or not this would be viewed as bad or dishonorable. And yeah, again, that's real worry in his eyes here. And I do think this is going to be an excellent examination of Dunk just as a person going through. And it absolutely should be, because Dunk's point of view in the text is one of my favorite. I think if I was ranking Dunk's viewpoint alongside the other characters in Ice and Fire, he would 100% be top 10 for me, if not maybe top 5. He might barely knock Theon out of the top 5. But I'd have to reread Theon's chapters and the Hedge Knight to fully make a determination on that. But yeah, no, you're right. Milkman is back is saying in the chat that last trailer had a lot of Lionel replaced by Baylor this time. They do act as kind of the narrators of each of these trailers, which I find quite interesting, and I do think they're both going to take very key roles in Sir Duncan's story as it is continuing in this show. Actually, I'm not sure that we see Lionel at all outside of that opening kind of shot of the trial at this point. But yeah, we see that this is, again, Raymond Fossaway saying, won't they kill you anyway if you don't run? Because at this point, Dunk is worried because there is some issue with Aerion Brightflame, and if he runs, they're going to kill him. If he stays, he's probably going to die anyway. I'm not going to super get into the mechanics of that in case there are people here who've not seen the show, read the books. None of us have seen the show, I think, except Martin. But yeah, we get some really cool, oh my god, this puppet is incredible, and I'm really excited to see the way this actually takes shape here. And it's worth noting that I actually think I've kind of disproven myself and chat a little bit, that this knight who is fighting the dragon appears to be an actual person here, which is quite interesting. So that head that Dunk was looking at might not necessarily be a fake head or a puppet head, because it looks like the main puppet here is, the dragon itself, which is very impressive. I hope they address how the fire is being produced here. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Refreshing. Excellent. But no, so there seems to be something, actually we can kind of see how it's produced here. There's a torch here, and it seems like there's some jet of something coming out of the dragon's mouth, then is ignited by the torch, which is quite interesting. I don't know what exactly would be available and could be shot out in this way for the dragon to be able to actually exhale. Ooh, that's a great point. Someone in the chat, Kitty, has said Serwyn of the Mirror Shield, which is this historical kind of mythic figure knight. in A Song of Ice and Fire history. And I do 110% think that that's true, because there's a story that Sir Serwyn of the Mirror Shield was able to use this reflective shield to trick a dragon into allowing him to approach, and then he ends up stabbing the dragon and killing it. And then later on in the Dance of the Dragons, there's another knight who tries to do the same thing and ends up getting killed over it. There's some dispute over who exactly this knight was and which side of the war they were on and which dragon they were trying to kill, but ultimately I do think that is 110% what is happening here, because I think they're trying to set that up for House of the Dragon Season 2. Because I think in House of the Dragon Season 2, we're going to see that happen. We're going to see a knight say, oh, I'm Serwyn of the Mirror Shield. I'm going to approach this dragon and I'll be able to kill it with this reflective shield. It's really cool, and I think it's a great way of using these two shows to each other's benefit to establish this kind of shared mythos between them, because this isn't necessarily Marvel. The characters of House of the Dragon and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms aren't going to be uniting to take down some bad guy. The benefit of having a cohesive world in this instance is the idea of having this kind of shared history and myth that audiences already are familiar with and know going into it. It's like the Commedia dell'arte in old Italy. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm a big fan of that. Great call on that being Serwyn. I know that Serwyn was a historical knight. I see someone's trying to correct me in the chat. I know he's a historical knight, but there's someone during the dance who tries to do the same thing because of the Serwyn story. But yeah, let's continue. Egg looking sad. I'm unsure what this is. I think this might be near the end of the story, but we will have to see. That helmet, again, is straight out of the graphic novel. I absolutely love it. Honestly, Dunk's entire design throughout this entire thing is perfect on every front. We also see an interesting weapon used here. If I can go back and it can pause at the right time. There. Yeah, wait a second. We have a mace in action from Aerion Brightflame, which is quite interesting. We've only seen a mace used in Game of Thrones adaptations just once. It was by Kristen Cole in the first episode of House of the Dragon, where he kicks Daemon's ass in that tourney. And it is very interesting to see kind of the connection between two individuals who are very much painted as villains, not only by the shows in which they are a part, but the historical record generally. So that could be kind of a point of connection. It is kind of interesting with this image of Aerion, this Targaryen black armor and the mace. He is kind of our Morningstar mace, potato, flail. I'm sure there are a million names for it. Regardless, this weapon combined with this image kind of gives the image of both Kristen and Daemon uniting into one kind of force here. Kind of the ultimate, bad Targaryen at this point. Morningstar, flail, mace, yeah, no, it's really cool, and it's interesting to actually see the lists themselves here. We also get this brief shot of a young woman. I believe this is probably Lord Ashford's daughter. She does play a small role in the text. The entire tourney is trying to, win her favor. She is the prize at the end of the day, and this will parallel the idea of Lyanna Stark being crowned the Queen of Love and Beauty, because there are certain elements that do kind of line up there, and there are a lot of theories revolving around this individual. Specifically, there's a theory from the books, it's very old, I don't quite agree with it, that Sansa's suitors in the main series mirror Lord Ashford's daughter's suitors in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Because they are in an interesting order, and they include one house that is kind of strange and kind of out there. Specifically, we see it's Baratheon, a Lannister, a Tyrell, a Harding, and then a Targaryen are her champions, and the thought is that Sansa's champions, quote-unquote, and romantic interests are going to be Joffrey Baratheon, quote-unquote, followed by Tyrion, or no, sorry, it was Tyrell, then Lannister. It was Joffrey Baratheon, followed by Willis Tyrell, followed by Tyrion Lannister, followed by Harry the Heir Harding, followed by some Targaryen, that being Aegon or Jon or someone else. I don't super buy that, mostly because I don't think Sansa will interact with Aegon that much, because they're on different sides of the continent, and then I also don't think that Jon and Sansa will be romantic, but that's a can of worms for another video. I should do a marriage candidates thing for Sansa. Whoever said, half an hour ago that Egg was carrying a lance, you win a cookie, because he is doing that, and it seems like this is in immediate preparation for a joust or this big trial or fight, and he is running to get Dunk's lance for him, which is really interesting and really cool to see. because it does show that Egg is going to be actively helping at this point rather than, just sitting around and watching. Because in the books, I don't think he plays much of a role in the trial itself. He just kind of sits and watches, aside from maybe convincing certain individuals to fight for Dunk, but regardless of that, having him actively be a participant here is a cool choice, and I am excited to see how that goes. This is also a really cool shot. Somebody with a Targaryen shield is really taking a dive here. Unclear who exactly is... Oh, actually, no. So I've seen so many people on Twitter, mostly, incorrectly say, oh, this is Baelor taking a fall here. And we know for a fact that it is not. Because look at that. That is the Morningstar / flail / mace right here. The Targaryen shield, and that is very clearly Aerion's helmet. Or Aerion. God damn it. Aerion's helmet. And we see that it is Dunk knocking Aerion off of his horse. So there is some issue there. It's not quite confirmation on how exactly certain things are going to go. Yeah, that is maybe the most airborne we've seen someone in this series, other than being on a dragon. And it's worth noting, back here, we see Knights of the Kingsguard on both the left and I think the right as well, because there are Kingsguard Knights fighting in here, and I would really like to see some interaction between Dunk and the Kingsguard in this show. I think that is an area where there maybe could have been a little bit more fleshed out in the original text. Though the original text, I must say, is near perfect. I absolutely love the Hedge Knight. I think it's some of Martin's best writing, though personally the Sword is my favorite, what's it called? Short story, novella. Novella was the word I was looking for. But this looks truly action-packed. We have a little bit more of this as it goes here. This is kind of the rising action of the trailer. We see some actual fighting between Dunk and Aerion. It is interesting to see both of them in the mud, because we see them initially start on horseback, and then we see them both get knocked off and just fighting in the mud. He does chat with the Kingsguard a bit, but I would like just a little bit more. Let me see. Okay. This is the greatest. This is the best moment of the trailer. Are there no true knights among you? I think this was something that they wanted to talk about at the panel. Peter Claffey, Dunk's actor, effectively walked right up to this moment and just didn't say it for sake of spoilers, though certain other people in that panel were not concerned about spoilers. But regardless, this moment is fantastic, and I am so excited to see its full context. Just Dunk making a plea, are there no true knights among you? Because Dunk is a true knight. God, the only thing I would ask of this trailer more, that other than like what it has, I would love to see more of the dynamic between Dunk and Egg. We did get some of that in the first teaser trailer. January 18th cannot come soon enough. HBO Max plans start at 10 something a month. But yeah, this was absolutely excellent. I was doing a little bit of research before I hopped on stream just to make sure some of my assessments were correct. That is indeed probably the daughter of House Ashford, because that is their color correctly. And I also wanted to check the Notablog, see if Martin said anything about the new trailer. It does not appear that he did. But yeah, no, there are also some interesting new images. We got a bunch of promotional stills earlier on yesterday, which I wanted to take a look at because they reveal some things that aren't necessarily shown in this trailer as we see it. So this is the wonderful thumbnail I cooked up for you. I hope you enjoy. We get this image. This is a little bit older of Dunk and Egg talking around the horses. This seems to be early on. I think this is around when Dunk arrives in Ashford. But yeah, that's not one of the new images. This is one of the new images. I really like it. It seems to be very early on in the story, given the fact that we do see Sir Arlen of Pennytree's sigil still on this shield, which is carried by Dunk, and that is later on kind of replaced by the sigil that is drawn for him by the one and only Tencel, who we'll get to a little bit later on. And then, yeah, new blog post, beware the sandwiches. But yeah, moving from that, we get... So, at the panel, it was interesting. George R.R. Martin and Egg's actor kept mentioning this tug-of-war scene as something big that was going on. I think this was happening on the day that George R.R. Martin was visiting set for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is really cool, and it seems like something that is larger. And if I recall, I don't think there was any... large tug of war in the books. Have I spoken about the Baelor casting? I have. I do wish he looked more like Baelor in the books, but I do think I believe in the actor to do a good job. But yeah, it will be interesting to see the role this plays. Based on Egg participating and the age of some of the other participants, it does seem as though this is an event intended mostly for squires. So it will be interesting to see if we get any other kind of houses shouted out as squires. If we get a Connington sigil, I will be so excited, and I will do a second-by-second breakdown of every second it's on the screen. But regardless, Egg looks excellent as always. Lionel Baratheon looks incredible. He is going to be, I think, one of the main breakout stars of this show, and I think he's going to steal pretty much every scene that he is in. Those antlers are incredible, frankly, and we do see in the previous trailer that he does make Dunk kind of put them on and wear them, which is very fun. He just seems like the life of the party, and I think my number one hope with Lionel Baratheon is that at some point throughout the series, we see a shade of each of the Baratheon brothers. I'm sure we're going to see Robert, the bombastic, the beloved, the ale drinking, the excellent. It's going to be excellent. The antlers on the helmet is already Robert. But I want to see a little bit of Stannis. I'd like to see a little bit of duty and edge and seriousness there as well. I'd love it to see if there's like another side to this character. Yeah, no, honestly. And I do think, this might be a hot take, I think this actor, if he were like younger, obviously, he would have been a perfect choice for Renly Baratheon in Game of Thrones. Because I think Renly in Game of Thrones doesn't look anything like Renly in the books. Renly in the books is described as a younger Robert, being just massive and buff. But yeah, overall, I think he absolutely nails it, and I'm really excited to see how his role is going to shape up, because it's very clear they're beefing him up. And we do know from Martin that there is some involvement of Lionel Baratheon in at least one future Dunk and Egg story, where he ends up fighting against Dunk for some reason or another, albeit there is some concern that's happening so far in the future that this guy might be geriatric in universe, but we'll see. He's a bit old. Everyone in the show is a little older than I would expect them to be. And then, of course, we get the GOAT. We get Baelor Breakspear. Interesting. I like that he has what looks like a signet ring. It makes sense for the Hand of the King and someone who is so important to House Targaryen. And then we can also see at his hip here, looks like a dagger, does not look like the dagger. I do not think the dagger is going to be a part of this show, at least at this point. I see people in the chat talking about Walder Frey. He is alive. He's also 2. But it is interesting to see. I love the lighting in this scene as well. It's very warm and inviting. Very much in contrast to someone who we didn't see speak in the trailer. That being the one and only Maekar Targaryen, the father of Aerion Brightflame, who they look very similar here. It is very interesting to see. Anytime we see another Targaryen king on screen, there is great cause to rejoice. I have a new image to use of him in videos, which I'm very excited about. But regardless, he is a very interesting character, and I do hope we see a lot of him going forward. Because I think that one of the main things I would love to see in this series, full stop, is some interaction between Maekar, and Baelor that Dunk isn't privy to. Because I think one of the main benefits of Game of Thrones was getting scenes beyond the viewpoint that is attached to them. These scenes between Littlefinger and Varys, and scenes with just Tywin and Jaime before Jaime's a viewpoint, or Cersei and Robert before Cersei's a viewpoint. It's really interesting, and it's a way to flesh out these characters beyond what can typically happen. I know Ira Parker has discussed this show being tied to Dunk's viewpoint, and I am so excited to see that happen, but overall, having these two interact would be really cool and kind of deepen their dynamic before what's going to happen. Yeah, I see people in the chat saying they imagine Maekar bigger. I could see that, and I do think that he does look a fair bit older than I expected, but I do think a big reason he looks older than his older brother is the fact that he has white hair, and it looks like he's old. Honestly, kind of he's the second person in this show I'm saying looks like Barristan Selmy in Game of Thrones, but I am saying that. But yeah, overall, I like his look, and I am excited to see. I hope we get more there in terms of development and fleshing him out, because I do think Maekar is one of the more interesting characters in this story as it currently stands, and I am really excited to see it. Thank you so much for the super chat from Julian Kerr. Who has the bigger scowl, Stannis or Maekar? I would say probably Maekar in this story. I think he has more to scowl about. But I tweeted yesterday saying that this is Targaryen Stannis Baratheon, even though Stannis is partially Targaryen as well. But yeah, the two characters are very similar in a number of ways, at least one of which is something that I won't spoil and will be seen on this show. They have very similar dynamics of being very kind of duty-bound, very stern, and really just focusing on what is before them and a little else. But yeah, I think this could be a good way to kind of bring in some elements of that book Stannis that so many people just truly, truly love. And yeah, I think that this is going to be a really interesting way to see him. And I do think that we don't know the future of Dunk and Egg. We only have 3 stories so far. That is what Martin has written so far. But I would guess that he has roles to play in future stories, just simply based on his status in later books. But yeah, thank you very much for the super chat. If anybody else has any questions or anything else they'd like to say, feel free to do that. But yeah, there are a few more images here. Starting with Aerion Brightflame. We'd effectively seen this in the previous trailer. We see him asking if Dunk is a stable hand, which is funny and on brand for Aerion Brightflame. And I do really like this cloak with kind of the lightning over it. He's almost rocking the Dondarrion banners we saw earlier on. But yeah, I think it's a very good vibe, and I do think that we really haven't seen a ton of him yet, and I'm very excited to see more of him truly kind of being this mustache twirling villain, because I think he can do great. The only thing I've seen this actor in so far was the half of the 4th season of True Detective Night Country that I watched, and while I wasn't big on that season, I do think he did a pretty good job in that role, though he was not really a main focus in that show. This is Tanzel Tutal. I discussed her a little bit earlier. She's the individual who paints Dunk's shield different, and I do think that she is going to have a slightly beefed up role from what she does in the book, and I am very excited to see it. I think that this very much captures the vibe, and it is really cool to have this kind of romantic interest for Dunk. I think it fleshes out his character in an interesting way and adds kind of another layer of motivation. And she is someone who does truly seem like a good person, who is just kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time and ends up just being, hurt because of it. Is Mykar's wife a Dondarrion? I don't think so. I thought she was a Dane. I think Mykar's wife is a Dane, if I remember correctly. Yes. Yeah. I'm getting confirmation from chat. I'm not insane. I'm just Dane. But yeah, I think there are a few more. Yeah, we get a little more Raymond Fossaway, which is cool here. Almost Podrick energy with that armor. It looks almost identical to Pod's from Game of Thrones, which I quite like. And I could see these two characters very much bringing similar energy to their respective shows. And I'm excited to see how he develops throughout. And I do think we don't get much focus on his older cousin, and I do think that we will get a bit more of that in the show itself. But it makes sense that we see him talking to Dunk as this kind of mediator viewpoint between Dunk and the higher-ups. Do you think Tanzel will have an accent in the show? That's a good question. She is from Dorne, if I recall. I could see her having one. Yeah, maybe. I think she might, honestly. That's a good call. Let's see. What else do we have here? Yeah, this is the last slide. I put it on here like 2 seconds before I went live, but apparently at this panel for Dunk and Egg, which is currently going on in Brazil, they give out these inflatable swords that have the name of the show on them, and this bag that is in the shape of Dunk's shield, which I really enjoy, and it's really cute, and I wish they gave those out at New York City Comic Con, because that would be really cool. But yeah, that design for the shield is really cool, and I would buy that on a shirt in a heartbeat. It's really, really cool. I'm so excited for the show overall, and this trailer also looks incredible. And I also have to say, the music throughout the trailer was excellent throughout. I love when we get into the "Are there no true knights among you?" A bit of the main Game of Thrones theme kind of creeps in a little bit. It's really, really cool, and I'm really excited. So we do know that the music is not done by Ramin Djawadi. Instead, it is done by someone else, but it seems like there is still going to be that influence of the prior works of music from this world generally. So yeah, that's the trailer, and I'm really excited for it. I should be going. I have Wills, Trusts, and Estates class in literally 4 minutes. So I'm going to have to sprint to my law school. If you enjoyed this, be sure to drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel. I have a new video coming out on Saturday discussing the Greyjoy Rebellion and what I believe to be Euron's role therein. So thank you all again so much for joining me. I hope you will join me again for future streams and videos. And yeah, I appreciate any and all support. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you again for watching.